I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Vietnam Veterans News Podcast. News of interest about Vietnam veterans from a Vietnam veteran. Now, here's your host, Mac Payne.
This is Mac Payne here with episode 1879 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. News about the Vietnam War and the brave veterans who served there, as told to you by yours truly, a Vietnam veteran. This episode of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast will be a tribute to the U.S. Marine Corps. They are a tremendous organization, and they should be appreciated for that. They do a great service to this country. This tribute is coming from a confirmed Army man. Spent many years in the Army. Had a few brief contacts with the Marines down through the years, both over there in Vietnam and back at Fort Bragg. From time to time, I would do things that would involve the Marines. That gave me sort of a superficial look at the Marine Corps. But that all changed a few years later. I am now motivated to make a point of honoring the Marine Corps. It all started changing when I began traveling around the country speaking on behalf of the Blue Water Navy Vietnam veterans, specifically trying to get some legislation passed to help them with their Agent Orange situation. Everywhere I would travel, I would always run into a few Vietnam veterans. And usually among those veterans I would meet at these speaking events, there would be a few Marines in the group. In the process of chatting with them, I began to pick up a few things. The most significant thing that impressed me the most was this. Most of the people I was talking to who had been in the Marines were older, and I would make the mistake of calling them a retired Marine. Every time without fail, they would always respond with this: I am not a retired Marine, I am a Marine. After a while, I became impressed, looked into it a little bit more. I began to wonder, what do they do to those recruits at the Marine Corps basic training to give them such an esprit de corps? I discovered more about it over the years and made me realize that America is fortunate to have an organization like the U.S. Marines. They do a good job on protecting our country, and they do something that indoctrinates every Marine with a deep sense of pride in being a Marine. That impressed me. That's why I'm taking the occasion on this podcast episode to issue a tribute to the U.S. Marines and thanking them for their service to their country. To help illustrate the greatness of the Marine Corps in a small way, I'm going to share with you a story that appeared on the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service website. Title of it is Vietnam Veteran Paves Way for Grandson. This is the story of a Marine who served in Vietnam and then decided to make the Marines a career. He did that. He retired back home to Jacksonville, Alabama, and guess what? He had a grandson by the name of Benjamin E. Bowdoin, who was just coming up through high school, and he admired his grandfather who served in the Marines. It had an effect on him, which you will see in this story. The purpose of me telling this story is to let you know how Marines appreciate the Corps and how it looks like it's going to continue. There's no byline to this story other than the fact it comes from the DVIDS. Let's take a look at it. Dateline, Jacksonville, Alabama. In 1965, as the Vietnam War polarized the U.S. public, one young man unwaveringly followed his childhood dreams. He spoke to his father, a Navy veteran who fought in World War II, and told him he wanted to be a Marine. The desire to serve in the armed forces would become a common family trait. That boy was Thomas G. Taylor, who, after meeting a Marine recruiter at 17 years of age, was convinced that the Marine Corps was his calling. Now his grandson, Benjamin E. Bowdoin, is following in his footsteps. When you're young and going into war, you don't really understand what war is, said Taylor, who enlisted under the military occupation specialty of 0311 infantryman in 1965. But what it gave me was the ability to evaluate what life was really about. Taylor yearned to be on the front line, a passion that would lead him to joining Force Reconnaissance. In 1968, he deployed to Vietnam with 1st Force Reconnaissance Company and served honorably through combat. I was just wondering if after his year in Vietnam with the 1st Force Reconnaissance Company, he still felt that yearn to be on the front line. I bet it might have changed just a little bit. I can tell you the sounds of bullets flying through the trees above your head going in the wrong direction, meaning from your front to your rear rather than the opposite direction, can be a little unnerving. Not something you really want to do over again. Continuing with the story. I had 2 gunshot wounds, said Taylor. I recovered from those, had a successful Marine Corps career, and I believe that going into the Marine Corps was the basic foundation on making me a man, a leader, and a doer. Going into combat makes you evaluate your mental and physical state, and when you perform successfully, I believe you carry that throughout your entire life. Amen to that, Thomas Taylor. You are exactly right. Continuing. After the war, in 1975, Taylor would transfer to what was then the newly established MOS of military police. He continued in that role until 1985 when he retired as a master sergeant. Even now, I'm 72 years old and I believe I can do anything, said Taylor. That was the exact same attitude I sensed from all these Marines I spoke to as I traveled around the country. Taylor also said this, when I was 17 coming out of high school, I didn't think I could do anything. The Marine Corps made me the person I am today. Bowdoin, Taylor's grandson, is a senior at Pleasant Valley High School in Jacksonville, Alabama. He's currently 17 years old, the same age his grandfather was when he enlisted. I remember growing up, just looking through his photos and him telling me stories about Vietnam, said Bowdoin. Just the thought of him being in Force Recon is cool. It's rare and he really inspired me. When Bowdoin showed interest in joining the Marines, Taylor took him on a road trip across the country to various military installations. When they reached their last stop, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island in South Carolina, Bowdoin decided which branch to join. Notice that Mr. Taylor saved the best for last. The other branches weren't as organized as the Marines were, said Bowdoin. Everybody was in shape on Parris Island, and you can tell they really pushed their guys. After that, I told him I wanted to join the Marines. Can you imagine how proud Thomas G. Taylor is of his grandson, who is going to follow in his footsteps into the U.S. Marines? Bowdoin joined the Marine Corps Delayed Entry Program on October the 2nd under Recruiting Substation Anniston, Recruiting Station, Montgomery, Alabama. As part of the DEP, he is preparing for recruit training, which takes place on MCRD Parris Island. If he completes the 13 weeks of training there, he will earn the title of U.S. Marine like his grandfather before him. I don't know about you, but I have a feeling Benjamin E. Bowdoin will complete the 13 weeks of training and become a bona fide, real live U.S. Marine. When you have a grandfather encouraging you like he does, I'm sure he'll make it. If this article does not make you appreciate the U.S. Marines, nothing will. The Marines are a wonderful organization, and our country should be very happy they are there doing the job they do. I'm taking this opportunity to issue an official Vietnam Veteran News podcast salute to all Marines, including Thomas G. Taylor and his grandson, Benjamin E. Bowdoin, who will soon be a U.S. Marine. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you very much to the U.S. Marine Corps. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. This is Mac Payne closing out episode 1879 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. Thank you so much for coming to listen to these stories. You are cordially invited to return again soon and often to listen to more that will be coming your way on this podcast, the Vietnam Veteran News.
How about that? Ain't that a mess?